Hello everyone and a very warm welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we're going to learn about IELTS Speaking Part 1. In this lesson, we're going to look at the topic of work and study. Let's talk about what you do. Let's talk about what you do. This lesson is going to be the third segment about introducing yourself to the examiner. So far, I have uploaded segment 1, segment 2, and this is segment 3 about how to introduce yourself to the examiner. Now, when you're doing your IELTS Speaking Part 1, once you have introduced yourself to the examiner using the information in segment 1, the examiner is going to ask you, or is going to tell you, let's talk about what you do. Now, we're going to look at some questions and some sample answers. But before we begin the lesson, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Share the video with anybody else who may benefit from it, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel and have a look at the other videos that I have in my channel that are really going to help you with your IELTS speaking, writing, grammar, vocabulary, and so on. Now let's begin our lesson by looking at question 1. Do you work or are you a student? Now, there is a very great chance that you will be asked that question by the examiner as part of your IELTS Speaking Part 1. Do you work or are you a student? So in that question, the examiner wants to know whether you work, do you have a job, or are you a student? Now you can answer that question by saying, I have written 2 answers, so let's look at the first answer, and that is 1A. Do you work or are you a student? I work full-time as a bus driver for Arriva. I work full-time as a bus driver for Arriva. Or you can say, when the examiner asks, do you work or are you a student? You can answer that question by saying 1B. I'm a full-time student at Abu Dhabi University. I am a full-time student at Abu Dhabi University. So you have 2 sample answers that you can adapt to your own situation. When the examiner asks, do you work or are you a student? You can say, I work full-time as a bus driver for Arriva. Now, Arriva is the company that you work for. So I work full-time as a bus driver for Arriva. Or you can say, I'm a full-time student at Abu Dhabi University. I am a full-time student at Abu Dhabi University. Or maybe you work and study at the same time. So in that case, you can say, I work part-time as a bus driver for Arriva and I study at Abu Dhabi University. I work full-time as a bus driver, but I also study at Abu Dhabi University. So you can say, I work and study. Okay, I work part-time as a cleaner, but I also study nursing. Okay, for example, I work part-time as a cleaner and I study nursing at Abu Dhabi University. Okay, so I've given you 2 options there. I work and study, okay? I work part-time as a bus driver, but I also study nursing at Abu Dhabi University. Now let's move on to the second question. What sort of work do you do? What sort of work do you do? So in this question, the examiner wants to know what job you do. Okay, what sort of work? Your work is your job. What sort of work do you do? Now you can answer this question by saying, I have three different answers. 2A. What sort of work do you do? I work as a carpenter. Or you can say, now a carpenter is someone who makes furniture, okay, like tables, chairs, okay, using wood. That is a carpenter. Or you can say, I work as a doctor. Or you can say, I work as a nurse. Or I work as a street vendor. Now, a street vendor is someone who sells goods on the streets, okay? A street vendor is someone who sells goods on the street. Maybe ice cream, maybe sweets, maybe mangoes, maybe different types of fruits, or maybe they even sell kitchenware like plates, okay? But they sell them on the street. That is a street vendor. Or you can say, I work as a cleaner. Or I work as a factory worker. Okay, I work as a factory worker. Or I work as a market hawker. Now, a market hawker is someone who sells goods in the market. Okay, that is a market hawker. I work as a teacher. I work as an English teacher. I work as a physics teacher. I work as a biology teacher. I work as an engineer. Okay, I work as a mechanical engineer, or I work as an electrical engineer. So you have different choices there depending on what you do. What sort of work do you do? I work as a carpenter. Or when the examiner asks, what sort of work do you do? You have to be. You can say, I work for an engineering company as a mechanic. I work for an engineering company as a mechanic. Now, you can also say 2C when the examiner asks, what sort of work do you do? 2C, I work for a telecommunication company as a salesman. I work for a telecommunication company as a salesman. I work for a telecommunication company as a salesman. So you have three options there. Now, the next question, that is question 3. What do you do at work every day? What do you do at work every day? In that question, the examiner wants to know exactly what sort of tasks, what sort of activities do you do at work every day? Now, you can answer that question by saying, again here I've given you 2 sample answers. 3A, when the examiner asks, what do you do at work every day? You can say, as a businessman, my job entails buying and selling goods. As a businessman, my job entails buying and selling goods. Now, entails is a really good word. And what it means in this context is that my job involves, okay? You can either say, as a businessman, my job involves buying and selling goods, or you can say, my job entails buying and selling goods, okay? As a businessman, my job entails means my job involves buying and selling goods. Or you can say, when the examiner asks, what do you do at work every day? Sample answer 3A. Okay, 3B. As a mechanic, I have to repair cars and test drive them daily. As a mechanic, I have to repair cars and test drive them daily. As a mechanic, I have to repair cars and test drive them daily. Okay? Now, let's move on to question 4. Do you enjoy your job? What do you like the most about it? Do you enjoy your job? What do you like the most about it? Now, you have 2 questions there. In the first question, the examiner wants to know whether you find your job enjoyable. Okay, do you have fun at work? And in the second question, the examiner wants to know the favorite part of your job. What do you like the most? What is your favorite part? What do you enjoy the most? So when the examiner asks, do you enjoy your job? What do you like the most about it? You can answer this question by saying, sample answer 4, I derive a lot of pleasure from my job. My favorite part is interacting with the customers and my colleagues who are very friendly. I derive a lot of pleasure from my job. My favorite part is interacting with the customers and my colleagues who are very friendly. Now, the word derive means I get a lot of pleasure, okay? You are aiming for a band 8 or a band 9. So instead of saying I get a lot of pleasure from my job, you can say I derive a lot of pleasure. I derive a lot of pleasure. Now, pleasure means enjoyment, okay? When the examiner asks, do you enjoy your job? I derive a lot of pleasure from my job. Actually, I derive a lot of pleasure from my job. And then when the examiner asks, what do you like the most about it? Then you can say, my favorite part. Now, favorite part means what you like the most. My favorite part is interacting with the customers and my colleagues who are very friendly. Interacting means socializing, okay? Socializing with the customers and my colleagues who are very friendly, okay? So you enjoy your job because you derive a lot of pleasure from your job, and the favorite part is socializing with the customers and your colleagues because they are very friendly. Let's move on to question 5. What would you change about your job? What would you change about your job? In that question, the examiner wants to know what you don't like about your job, okay? What is it about your job that you don't like, so you would like to change it? Now, you can answer that question by saying, if I could, I would change my working hours since I really detest doing night shifts because I struggle to stay awake. If I could, I would change my working hours since I really detest doing night shifts because I struggle to stay awake. Now take note of how I have begun that sentence. It is very, very important that you understand the grammar. What would you change about your job? I said, if I could. So if I could, if I got the chance to do it, if I could, I would. If I could, I would change my working hours since I really detest doing night shifts because I struggle to stay awake. Now, detest means hate, okay? When you don't want to say you hate something, you can say you detest something. I detest it. I detest him. Detest means hate, okay? So in this answer, I said that the one thing that I would like to change about my job is doing night shifts, working at night, okay? When you have to work at night, maybe it means that you start at 6 o'clock in the evening and you finish your job at 6 o'clock in the morning, okay? Or sometimes you begin your job at 10 o'clock at night and you finish at 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, if you're the sort of person who finds it difficult to work at night, then you can choose this as your sample answer, as your answer, and say, if I could, I would. Now, take note of how you begin that answer, okay? If I could, I would change my working hours since I really detest doing night shifts because I struggle to stay awake. Now, if you struggle to stay awake, it means that sometimes when you're working at night, you doze off, okay? You sleep off and then you wake up. So if you're that sort of person, then you definitely would struggle doing night shifts. Now, let's move on to question 6. What are you studying and where? What are you studying and where? Now, in this question, the examiner wants to know what it is that you're studying, what course, what degree, and where are you studying it. So this question has 2 parts. What are you studying and where? What and where? Now, you can answer that question by saying, I'm studying to become a doctor, or I'm studying to become a nurse, or I'm studying to become a mechanic, or I'm studying to become an optician at the University of Karachi, okay? I am in my first year, okay? So I'm studying to become a doctor at the University of Karachi. I am in my first year. Or I'm studying to become a nurse at the University of Karachi. I am in my first year. So take note of the prepositions that you use there. I am studying to become a doctor at the University of Karachi. I'm in my first year, or I'm in my second year. I'm in my third year, okay? Depending on, when you started your course, okay? So what are you studying and where? I'm studying to become a mechanic at a college in my hometown, okay? You can also say that. I'm studying to become a nurse. I'm studying to become a mechanic at a local college in my hometown, okay? I am studying to become a mechanic at a local college in my hometown. That is also fine. Now, number 7. Why did you choose to study that course? Why did you choose to study that course? In that question, the examiner wants a reason as to why you chose to study that course. Why did you choose to study it? Okay, what is the reason? Now, you can answer that question by saying, well, I chose to study law because I want to work as a criminal lawyer and defend the rights of my clients. Well, I chose to study law because I want to work as a criminal lawyer and defend the rights of my clients. So, in that answer, I have explained why I chose to study the course, and it is because I want to work as a criminal lawyer. Okay, and the reason I want to work as a criminal lawyer is because I want to defend the rights of my clients. Okay, now you can also say, well, I chose to study engineering because I enjoy working with machines. Or you can say, well, I chose to study a course in baking, for example. I chose to study baking because I enjoy creating new recipes and flavors for my cakes, something like that. It just depends on what it is that you're studying, okay? Now, number 8. What do you enjoy the most about your course? What do you enjoy the most about your course? Now, in this question, the examiner wants you to identify the most favorite part of your course. What do you enjoy the most about it? Now, you can answer that question by saying, sample number 8, the most favorite part of my course is that I get to interact with students from all over the world as well as lecturers. The most favorite part of my course is that I get to interact with students from all over the world as well as lecturers. Now that's a very safe answer, okay? You can always use that sample answer, what do you enjoy the most about your course? The most favorite part of my course is that I get to interact with students from all over the world as well as lecturers. Now, to interact is to socialize, okay? To interact is to socialize. So what you like the most is that when you're studying your course, you have students from all over the world who are also at the same university studying the same course as you, and you enjoy just interacting with them and learning about their cultures. And also your lecturers are also from different parts of the world, and that you find enjoyable. Now, question 9. What challenges do you face as a student? What challenges do you face as a student? Now, in that question, the examiner wants to know the difficulties, okay? He or she wants you to tell them the difficulties that you have as a student. What difficulties do you face as a student? Now, you can answer that question by saying, sample answer 9. Some of the challenges that I face as a medical student include sleepless nights, studying for exams, and memorizing data. Some of the challenges that I face as a medical student include sleepless nights, studying for exams, and memorizing data. Now, those are some of the sample answers that you could use to adapt to your own answers when you get asked these questions. Just to give you a few tips, ensure that for each question you provide 2 to 3 details. The next tip, join your ideas together using linking words. You can see I have used a number of linking words in some of the answers, okay? Like for example, sample answer 5. If I could, I would change my working hours since is a linking word that means because, and then I also used because at the end because I struggle to stay awake, okay? So use linking words, but make sure that you use them correctly. The next tip is make sure that you have the vocabulary for the topic that the examiner is asking you questions about. And when it comes to study and work, you have sample answers to help you with that. The next tip that I would give you is that if you're the sort of person who gets very nervous, always begin your answer with part of the question. Like for example, sample answer 9. When the examiner asks, what challenges do you face as a student? You begin with the answer, with the question. Some of the challenges that I face as a medical student include or are, okay? Number 7, for example, why did you choose to study that course? You begin, sample answer 7. Well, I chose to study law because, okay? So if you're the sort of person who gets really nervous, you can always begin your answer with part of the question. And that gives you a chance to kind of think of the answer, okay? Now, most importantly, ensure that you speak in good grammar. That is extremely important. In fact, that's what really determines your band. Make sure you're speaking in the correct tense. And how do you know which tense to use? All you have to do is listen to the verbs in the questions. When the examiner asks the question, listen to the tense of the verb. For example, question 1, do you work or are you a student? The verb is work, so it is in the present tense. So in your answer, you need to use the present tense. Do you work? I work, okay? Question 2, what sort of work do you do? Again, work is in the present tense, so you use the present tense. I work as, okay? Now, the most tricky one is the question 5. What would you change about your job? Okay? What would you change? Now, if I could, I would change. Or if you're not very confident saying if I could, then you can just say I would change. What would you change? I would change. So you just repeat the verb that the examiner has used in the question. Okay? What are you studying and where? I am studying. You repeat exactly the same verb. Why did you choose to study that course? I chose to study. Now that is in the past tense, okay? because the question is in the past tense. Why did you choose to study that course? Did is in the past tense, okay? What do you enjoy the most about your course? The most enjoyable part of my course is, okay? Or you can say, what I enjoy the most about my course is, okay? So if you struggle with tense, use that as your tip. Just use exactly the same verb in exactly the same verb form as the examiner has used in the question. All right? Now, if you have your IELTS speaking test coming up very soon, I wish you all the best. Remember, you can do it. You can get a high band. All you have to do is practice. Practice, practice, practice. Because practice makes perfect. Now remember to give this video a thumbs up and share it with anybody else who may benefit from it. And of course, subscribe to the channel because very soon I will be uploading segment 4 on the series of how to introduce yourself to the examiner. Okay, now thank you very much everyone, and I shall see you in our next lesson. Bye bye.